Hello, and welcome to the Digital Forensic Expert Testimony video for Project 4. This brief is from Group 5 and is narrated by Michael Rogers. Today's testimony will be in response to a number of questions provided by the legal team during the witness's testimony. Today's forensic expert, Mr. Michael Rogers, has 6 years of expertise in forensic analytics and has provided oversight over a number of cases in the area. His responses will cover 3 recent projects. The agenda for this brief will cover the project overviews that Mr. Rogers participated in during the Global Economic Summit in the United Kingdom. The presentation will then transition onto Mr. Rogers' testimony with a series of legal questions regarding the activities at the summit and his expert responses. Once his testimony has been reviewed, there will be a period for questions regarding this brief, the testimony questions and responses, or any other areas. Please note that this brief will also be available via the YouTube link at the end of this presentation. Project 1 covered the Global Economic Summit hosted in the United Kingdom. Alliance countries, comprising of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States, each set up a secure network infrastructure for their attendees. The Economic Summit was identified as a target for a cyber attack by other nations or malicious actors due to the sensitive nature of the information being presented and shared. As the risk of a cyber attack against the Five Eyes countries attending the summit has been identified, enhanced security practices were to be developed and implemented. The deliverables from the group entailed the cybersecurity policies and security posture of the secured network and its connections. Next was developing a general security baseline of devices and what potential exploits could be identified. The policies, baselines, and procedures were then compared against other Five Eyes countries to help provide a common security compliance posture to protect the summit networks and its attendees. Finally, an incident response plan was provided to detail the procedures that the team would implement should an incident occur during the summit. This reporting would include what steps led to the incident and what was found on the network, and how the incident was closed with lessons learned to prevent similar attacks in the future. Project 3 expanded on Project 2's anomalous attack with the Summit network and how the team responded to network activity that was detected on the agency's servers and now has been struck by a ransom attack. The main deliverable was the Cyber Operations and Risk Management Brief, which comprised of the existing Incident Response Plan, the Business Continuity Plan, and standard operating procedures. The inclusion of the situation reports highlighted how the ransomware attack happened on the network through its identification using hardware and software applications on the network. These reports were also used to supplement the Allied Partner Security Integration. A forensic investigation report detailed how forensic specialists, like Mr. Rogers, utilized software application suites in an attempt to investigate how attacks happen through a review of evidence using tools that can decrypt files, crack passwords, review deleted files, and We have Mr. Michael Rogers present in the courtroom today to testify before this court on his knowledge of the activities at the recent Global Economic Summit. Mr. Rogers is a certified cybersecurity analyst with a degree in cybersecurity. His expertise covers information assurance and awareness of enterprise systems and operational security. Mr. Rogers also served in the Armed Forces for 11 years as a cryptologic technician for the Navy. He is currently deployed as a senior systems administrator and cybersecurity engineer. Mr. Rogers, your testimony will be based on answering expert questions regarding the events that unfolded at the Five Eyes Summit earlier this year. This testimony will be presented to a panel of judges to include a CISO, the digital forensic investigators from other Five Eye Nation teams, and they will evaluate national cybersecurity policy and their own conclusions. Please raise your right hand and acknowledge that your testimony will be the truth and the whole truth. I swear. Ms. Bonds, you may present your questions to the witness.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, thank you for coming in today to answer my questions. I hope that your responses will provide valuable insight to the panel as they review the information presented today. My first question is, what are the legal challenges associated with cyber incidents involving foreign countries, and how do the internal laws affect electronic discovery, otherwise known as e-discovery?
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. The legal challenges faced when an incident occurs begins with identifying the location of that attackers and the said country's cyber laws and policies. This includes working with that nation's law enforcement groups to present intent and impact of the attack on the target. While the reasons of a cyber attack are varied based on financial gain, notoriety, or religious and political agendas, the nation may require extensively more evidence than if the attack investigation happened on local soil. Additionally, as cybercrimes and attacks become more complex, the number of locations that the attack may be located at increase the difficulty of threading the various legal requirements. For example, if an attack involved devices and network traffic from the United States and Iran, the level of support varies greatly between those nations. The European legal framework governing privacy and data protection of personal data is covered by three legal frameworks: Directive 95/46/EC and ePrivacy Directive 2002/58 regards the processing of personal data in the context of the internal market. Regulation 45/2001/EC in respect to the uses of personal data relating to the common foreign and security policy. Finally, Framework Decision 2008-977/JHA governing personal data processed in the domain of police and criminal justice cooperation. The variety of regulations a country may or may not have increases the difficulty during e-discovery. Going back to the European laws, the documentation covering e-discovery can be ponderous and time-consuming, which is the worst enemy for forensic investigators when an attack occurs. So to counter these challenges is to have members of legal staff be part of the incident response team so they can utilize their expertise in acquiring permission to receive the evidence necessary to investigate.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. My next question continues with legal challenges, specifically with retrieving electronic evidence stored on foreign soil. Additionally, if cloud storage is used, what procedures are followed to access and retrieve digital evidence stored in the cloud?
As we discussed in your first question, these challenges between foreign countries also include the identification and recovery of electronic evidence. The main point is that the laws of the country where the evidence is stored must be enforced first and foremost. These laws can provide more stringent protection of a person's data regarding privacy and the level of the crime as seen by the host country. For the second part of your question regarding cloud storage, the procedures used to access and retrieve data started with obtaining a legal search authority warrant to seize the digital evidence. This was presented and reviewed by the country and service provider who stores the evidence. Once the evidence is obtained in the e-discovery portion, proper control of the evidence is maintained through a change of custody process that documents who is always in possession of the evidence. This ensures the integrity of the evidence for future proceedings. During forensic analysis, the investigator creates a forensic image of the evidence, again to protect the integrity of the item, and validates that it is a one-for-one copy and viable for analysis. During this stage, a forensic investigator like myself takes the questions and the scope of the case officer to guide my analysis of the item. This may require repeated steps against the image to ensure all areas of research are completed in accordance with the officer's requirements. Finally, I compile my results in a presentable report and provide that to the officer. I return the original evidence using the chain of custody and complete my casework. I also prepare for the possibility that my testimony may be required to explain the report and its findings. In my experience, as more and more companies begin storing data onto the internet or cloud storage, they don't develop a comprehensive plan on protecting their data between themselves and the storage service provider. Recent surveys noted that some of the risks of cloud-based applications include online storage, inadvertent information disclosure, theft of the intellectual property, regulatory compliance failures, identification difficulties for e-discovery, service outages, and poor documentation retention. While legal challenges regarding multiple nations can be daunting and time-consuming as nation-states protect their citizens, the variety of in-country uses and lack of knowledge of the use of cloud computing and storage can provide additional hurdles for the initial e-discovery evidence retrieval.
Again, thank you for your response. So, specific to the United Kingdom, how did the international laws and jurisdictions influence the processes and procedures followed during the forensic investigation?
Regarding the steps the United Kingdom team took, responded to the international laws, required the legal team to help interpret and recommend steps to align to the ally countries' different legislations and jurisdictions. Within the work for forensic investigations, navigating these foreign policies identify conflicts and incompatibilities. The challenge the team faced regarding the identification of the attacks against the network and its systems had to align with each country's laws. If not, it could render the evidence gathered inadmissible to court.
My next question is, what conflicts arose between ethics and international laws during the forensic investigations? How did these conflicts affect the investigations? And finally, how were the conflicts mitigated or resolved?
Ms. Barnes, the ethics and laws of another country can affect how the forensic investigation processes. Legally, countries may identify a cyber action differently than we do regarding the definition of a crime. What the United Kingdom defines as a cybercrime may not be seen at the same level of criminality as, say, in China or North Korea. This conflict can affect the investigation's attempts to acquire evidence, subpoena citizens, or complete necessary steps in tracking the attacker. To mitigate these potential conflicts, the United Kingdom based established collaboration policies regarding cybersecurity, personal privacy, and ethical resolutions prior to the event. Through the reports shared among the Allied partners, agreements regarding investigations and mutual protection of the network infrastructures ease the partnership between the security teams.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. My final question is based on the work between the United Kingdom team and the security team of the United States. What steps were taken to protect the United States soil and citizens during the international investigation? Describe any risks to the country, businesses, or citizens from your investigations.
Regarding the United States interests and citizens while in country, were met with the understanding that legal documentation would be presented to U.S. security teams if a determination based upon investigative evidence required the acquisition of devices, logs, and other e-evidence. Any risks to the United States itself, any businesses attending the summit, or U.S. citizens would be handled in the pre-approved policies between the two countries. If a U.S. citizen was identified or accused of a crime within the United Kingdom, that person will be subject to UK laws regarding the crime until guilt or innocence was determined.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for your time and testimony. I have no further questions.
This concludes the Digital Forensics Expert Testimony presentation. We now open the floor to questions. If you think of any questions later on, please feel free to email us at group5@global.uk. And please note the link to this presentation on YouTube. Thank you for your time today.